Hey there guys, this is Tyler and welcome to the top 5 worst FNAF fan games of all time.
So, this video sadly exists, and today I'm remaking it. You didn't expect a sequel to my top 5 worst FNAF fan games, didn't ya? Well, let's just say that I'm here to tackle some more bad FNAF fan games because, oh boy, there's still a decent amount.
It's no secret I've made plenty of these lists, worst FNAF fan game lists, often being top 5s. There's the original that I made in 2020 which brought people to my channel. I already made that video in 2021 due to personal issues I had with the original video, and then I made a part 2 to the remake in 2023 just because. Well, today I am making the ultimate 2025 remake to this video, which I plan on doing for previous lists. Those include worst FNAF songs, best FNAF characters, best FNAF fan games, and best FNAF songs. This is meant to be the ultimate and finalized version of my list. I am also extending this to a top 10 so that there's plenty of material to cover. This is going to be very interesting. The rules of the previous list still go. Only fan games with a certain amount of following can qualify for the list, as I don't want to put down any smaller known fan game developers who may either be children or starting out. Secondly, only full games, no demos. Thirdly, this is purely my subjective opinion. No objectivity will be found here. As typical for my videos, the title of the video is purely clickbait, which I'm going to be honest with you guys about, because why would I lie to you all? However, I am still counting down what I think are the 10 worst FNAF fan games ever, but these are purely my least favorites, not an objective worst list. I'm going to try my best to be constructive, even if I get harsh. I made this video with decent intentions. Before we begin, be sure to subscribe down below and turn on the notification bell. Totally optional, but it'd be appreciated if you did. Without further ado, let's go see what the worst FNAF fan games really are. Nah, just kidding. I don't even hate that game anymore. The true number 10 is... Now, this is an old fan game. Let me clear the elephant in the room here. The phone calls from Sir Topham Hatt in this game are hilarious and are honestly the only thing I like about the original version of Five Nights at Thomas's. This game otherwise is not very good looking back. For one, I feel like the difficulty of this game is all over the place. It doesn't have much balance to it. It surprises you with no reason or rhyme. See what I did there? This game is unsure of itself in my eyes and needed more of a balance. I'd still have difficulty within the gameplay of course, but it needed to be more focused when it came to it. That's my recommendation in regards to how the gameplay could be improved. Also, this game could have definitely had more polish, especially visually. The office could have been more detailed, and Thomas is literally just his CGI PNG. Also, the animations feel a little choppy. I feel like way more effort could have been put into this game. However, all these critiques I have towards the game were improved upon in the game's remaster, Five Nights at Thomas's Dehydrated. In this game, the gameplay feels more balanced, while still having enough difficulty that keeps the game's challenge as it goes on. The visuals are touched up on by a lot, and Thomas has his own model that actually looks terrifying. The best part is that the original developer of Five Nights at Thomas's, the game the number 10 pick is focused on, was involved in this remaster, so he definitely deserves credit for improving as a game developer, which is a neat thing about some of the games on this list. But in the end though, this game is severely dated and it definitely needed that remaster, for sure. Now this is another old fan game, like very old. This is a fan game based off Chuck E. Cheese, which this was obviously made and got popular due to Chuck E. Cheese being an inspiration for FNAF, the animatronics and everything. Now this fan game is not very good in retrospect. Why? Well, my biggest issue with the game is it has a massive difficulty issue. What I mean by this is that the game literally throws a lot at you very early on in the game and it lacks any true balancing. It is literally possible for Pasquale to show up and possibly kill you at 12 AM on night 1. That shouldn't happen in a FNAF fan game in my opinion. The difficulty of the game should have been gradual as the game went on, similar to the actual FNAF games. The fact the game throws all this on you this early just makes the game less enjoyable, honestly. Furthermore, the game is easy to exploit too. Apparently if you keep flipping the cameras on and off, nobody will truly attack you, which, come on, that's silly and stupid. As well, the visuals in this game are just not very good, at least the office. They could have been polished up way more, and there could have been more details to the office to make it unique. The animatronics in this game are also just PNGs of the actual real-life characters too. As well, the story failed to captivate me, I'm afraid, mostly because it doesn't do much to make the lore a big deal. However, I will say, like a decent portion of the fan games on this list, this game got a remake that makes the game so much better. Find It to Chuck E. Cheese is rebooted. This one also being done by the Radiance team. The gameplay is heavily improved on by having there be more balance in the game's difficulty, updated visuals, and actual models for the animatronics. It's a pretty damn good reboot. All in all though, this game is very dated for obvious reasons, and I'm glad this game can properly be enjoyed in modern day with its rebooted version. This is a fan game that was created by, dear god, Nichi. Yep, the Dormitabis guy. Thankfully though, this game doesn't have anything distasteful in the story. However, this game still isn't good and kinda sucks. My biggest issue with the game is that it's too easy. The mechanics are pretty simple in execution, and the game's difficulty doesn't really pick up as the game goes on at all. The gameplay loop is not even an interesting one to play. It just honestly ends up making the game very boring to play. This is one of the most boring FNAF fan games I've ever fucking played, dude. Full stop. I would have put more challenges as the game went on to make it more interesting to play. As well, I'm not particularly huge on the character models in this game. They could have been improved on more. I think the features of the models like the teeth and the eyes and more just don't go together well, and I also think there could have been more textures to the models. The animatronics don't look terrible, but I think more time should have been put into their models. I also think the environments and rooms look kind of bland too. More details perhaps. The colors could have been better too. All in all, just a nothing burger of a fan game that is also old and dated. Not much else I can really say. I might get shot for putting this on the list because of the quite large fanbase this fan game series has, and the fact that the later games in the series do somewhat improve. However, the first Final Fantasy Sonic game is just not that good in my opinion. Now, I'm not going to dance around the game for that long because the series did kind of improve as it went on, and some may say me talking about this game negatively is pointless, but I'm not the biggest fan, I'm afraid. There's the elephant in the room, the visuals. While yes, more could have definitely been put into them, like more details and possibly textures, I don't think the visuals are this game's biggest problem. I think this game's biggest problem is it's just FNAF 1 but more boring. Besides Sonic attacking from both sides and the power being more unnecessarily hard to maintain, it's literally just a reskin. At that point, just play FNAF 1. I personally think more should have been done with the fact it's a FNAF fan game about Sonic. I don't want FNAF 1 but more, because that would result in a game with just pointless additions that could be straight up insulting to the original game. Totally not foreshadowing for later. However, I think more Sonic-y elements should have just been put into the game to make this game stand out more as a Sonic FNAF fan game than just a FNAF 1 clone. Also, yeah, the power maintaining in this game is just weird. At least in regards to how it works. It should have been more like the actual FNAF 1's power mechanic where it drains a bit more slowly. And this isn't a skill issue moment, it's a genuine gameplay flaw that pretty much makes the difficulty of this game unnecessary. Despite being an old game, it's still not a very good game. However, I'm glad the series improved as it went on. Final Fantasy Sonics is not a bad series in the slightest. This first game though, I'm sorry, but it's a bad game, at least in my opinion. This game has a sizable fan base, and if you enjoy this game and think it's good, that's completely fine. More power to you. I'm just not one of them. This is the FNAF fan game with the animatronics who are meant to come across as both stylized while also looking like the Funtime animatronics in a way. I think the stylized animatronic models are okay, but the proportions could definitely be improved on. Now, the elephant in the room. This game's gameplay is ass. Why? It is by far the most glitchiest and buggiest FNAF fan game of all time, and the worst part is that it's still not patched at all, to this very day. The game constantly crashes on you, and it makes you so annoyed for a while of playing. As well, the gameplay's balance is so broken. The animatronics can just randomly kill you at any point. This all results in the game not being fun at all and ends up being a very frustrating experience for what is a FNAF fan game. This game would have benefited from some beta testers to test the game out for them to play themselves, just so they can report bugs, crashes, glitches, and all of that. This game had potential with its animatronics and gameplay, but it ended up being fumbled because the game is genuinely so damn broken. I can't tell if this game or Security Breach on launch is more glitchy and buggy. I think it's unlikely this fan game is going to get a patch or fix or anything like that because the developer was working on a sequel to this game, but he cancelled it and seems to not want to have anything to do with FNAF, so there's that. It's just a shame what this game ended up being like. It could have been so much better in the end. Oh boy, this is a controversial FNAF fan game for sure. Super cancer! Anyway, in terms of just this very first game in the series, it's so goddamn boring to play. It's a slog to play through in all honesty. As well, on top of that, this fan game is just so unpolished and jumbled together mechanic-wise. This game is genuinely a mess. A lot of the gameplay just doesn't make sense and it's still somehow boring. How's that even possible? This is a fan game that is not even worth playing or giving time to. It's not even just the gameplay that sucks. The visuals are just reused assets from FNAF 1 for 2, and everything is all poorly edited together, making it look clunky. The lore is not even interesting in this game because there's not much to captivate the player. What else can I really say that hasn't been said about this game already? It's a boring and clunky mess. Sorry that this one was rather short. I really have nothing to say about this game besides getting to the creator's controversies, but I don't really feel like doing that in this video if I'm honest. Moving on. Not to be confused with the Finds of Mactonite series by Malrat, this is another FNAF fan game created by a completely different guy based off the McDonald's character Mactonite, a character used prominently in the 80s to advertise the fact McDonald's was open 24 hours. Now this fan game, well, is so fucking boring. Mind-numbingly so. This is one of the most boring FNAF fan games of all time, dude. The reason why is that outside of one mechanic involving you using the cameras, that being to keep Hamburglar away from the power box, all you literally have to do in the game to fend everyone off is just stand there and do absolutely nothing. What the actual fuck? Only one semi-unique mechanic in this game and that's it. Everyone else has the same mechanic, and it's a mechanic that involves you doing jack shit. I think you can see the obvious problem with this. Oh my lord. My obvious piece of constructive advice or criticism to fix the gameplay of this game is to give the other characters more unique gameplay mechanics. More of ones involving the usage of the camera perhaps. It doesn't have to be the best mechanics in a FNAF fan game either. A lot of the characters just need different and unique mechanics that require you to actually do something. The Finds of Mactonite series, for example, is really good gameplay-wise throughout most of its games in the series, and the reason why is because there are different mechanics for each of the characters that make the game more challenging and make you put your skills to the test. As well, you're at least doing stuff. This game heavily missed the mark with its gameplay, and that's just terrible. As well, I'm not particularly a fan of the animatronic models in this game. I'm not huge on their shapes and proportions. I would probably put more time into perfecting them and making sure the shapes and proportions are up to snuff. This game is honestly such a huge shame and a disappointment. I will say though, the developer is working on a remaster for the game, and while it's been in development for multiple years now, I'm still looking forward to it. Mostly because the developer stated in the most recent devlog for the game that the core issue of the original game's gameplay of sitting still will be fixed. I'm hopeful for this game's future, but if I'm gonna be honest, the original version of this game from 2017 is one of the most boring games I've ever played and is honestly one of my personal least favorite FNAF fan games. I don't like it at all, I'm sorry. This was the #1 worst FNAF fan game on my 2021 remake list. And oh boy, I can see the most obvious comeback in the world with this one. It's a joke game, don't take it seriously. Yeah? I personally don't think the sexualization of these characters is the funniest joke in the world, not in the uncomfortable type of way which I stated in the past. Although it is a little bit weird that this game overly sexualizes characters typically associated with possessed children, even if said possessed children don't exist in this universe.
But Tyler, you did a FNAF Smasher Pass stream which kind of sexualizes the characters. Hypocrite!
Oh, Tiller, you silly creature. I said overly sexualizes the characters, not what is essentially a joke stream meant to be more fun than genuinely serious.
Do you see how big that mouth is? It detaches from itself. She is Canadian, Tyler. She is Canadian.
What? What? What the fuck? What? Anyway, yeah, the main issue and why I think the overall joke is not funny is because this game fails to expand on the joke. In my opinion, this is one of the worst FNAF fan games for me because of the missed potential and the fact it pretty much fails as a parody game for yet again, not expanding beyond the one joke. The one joke of this game is that, oh, the characters have big boobs. Okay, cool. Kind of funny, I suppose. Is there anything else to the joke? No, not really. See, in other parody fan games like Day Shift at Freddy's, or Finance of Fuckboys, or even Finance with 39, they add more and more to the few jokes they start off with and expand from there. Day Shift at Freddy's has a variety of jokes like pure edgy humor, memes, stupid and absurd humor, satire, and more. Finance of Fuckboys mainly has dialogue jokes, but the dialogue jokes and humor can be a variety of different things. And Finance with 39 mainly aims for satire of the FNAF formula, but does it in multiple different ways like swearing, masturbation, genuine critique towards FNAF itself meant to be passed off as comedic, memes, stupid humor, and etc. These fan games take advantage of the parody angle. That's why Finance in anime results in a disappointing fan game parody-wise, and honestly just ends up making the overall game awkward. To fix this game, I would have personally done more of the joke about the animatronics being sexualized. Not to a gross extreme, but make more subtle nods to the joke throughout the game and change it up each night to add variety to the joke. Have there be more surprises, let's say. There's other aspects like the gameplay that pretty much do not a lot to separate itself from FNAF 1, and the visuals. Okay, the art style of the visuals is actually pretty damn good, especially with the shading. And the obvious. Boo! While not the worst fan game for me anymore, it certainly has its big issue that makes the game really fall flat and ends up resulting in a very odd but poor experience. Before I talk about this entry, trigger warning for very sensitive subject matter like child rape. Please use the chapters in the description below to skip to the next section of the video if you don't want to hear me speak about such. Oh boy, this one is regarded as a lot of people's least favorite FNAF fan game, and for honestly one really valid reason. The one elephant in the room. That being the game's outright abysmal story. Secondly, seriously, why does Garvey, this game's version of William Afton, rape the girl who becomes Chica? Why does this need to be in a story that is meant to be somewhat in-universe to FNAF despite being a FNAF fan game? Now, only the first 4 FNAF games are canon, but it still makes this plot point very bizarre. It comes across as edgy for the sake of it, purely for shock value. Now, I know I may be seen as a hypocrite for saying that. Look at my YouTube show, Tyler Tales. However, Dormitabis is meant to be a FNAF fan game that follows the typical FNAF formula, is more tied to the original series and a lot of edgy FNAF fan works. That's why the story elements in Dormitabis don't work. At best, the story is just poorly written and pure shock value. At worst, it's a sickening and disgusting story. The fact it's almost shown in the cardboard theater minigame, the fact it's brought up in newspapers, and the fact that audibly, the event is descriptively described by Garvey himself through tapes just makes the whole plot element just more tasteless. And considering the lead developer to this game, if you know his actions, it's not a surprise why this terrible shit's in the game. Now I'll admit, the other aspects of the game like the gameplay and visuals are not as bad as the story. The gameplay is actually okay with decent mechanics that surprisingly flow together, and the visuals like the animatronic designs and environments, while not perfect, are extremely unique. The sound design is even really good too. However, this fan game is an example of a game or product where despite other aspects being okay, decent, or even good, one aspect ruins the whole fucking thing and makes it a terrible product all around. This may even come as a surprise to some of y'all because of how much I preach on this channel about gameplay being the most important aspect of a video game. However, I'm making a negative exception for this game. The story in this game really brought this game down by a lot. I'm sorry. You just can't have what it has in the story, at least how it's presented and written. Not even just the whole child rape plot element to it. Garvey himself as a villain is honestly a poorly written character and antagonist on top of that. His voice in the tapes also just comes across as, well, cringe. If the story of this game was not despicable, I would probably have a better fondness and experience for this game. However, the issues it has are so big and problematic that it's the second worst FNAF fan game ever for me. I'm not gonna even give constructive criticism for this entry, but let's just say the creator needs to stay off the internet and not continue making games. And we got the Dishonorable Mentions. These are fan games that either would make it on the list, or are fan games that I've shown disdain for in the past. So in short, this will be interesting. Five Nights at Candy's 2. This game is very broken in its gameplay. There are multiple ways to cheese the hell out of this game, and it's not even funny. Additionally, the environment is so boring and bland for the most part, and it makes the game very unappealing to play. Five Nights at Wario's. I know I might get flack for putting this game as a dishonorable mention on a worst fan game list because of how big the community for this series is. However, Wario's 1 really doesn't do anything special to separate itself from any game that serves to be similar to FNAF 1 in gameplay. Well, besides the obvious, the stock photo imagery. The stock photo imagery I think is the weakest in this game, however it does improve later on in the series. I think the future Five Nights at Wario's games are so much better, especially Wario's 4, which is my personal favorite Five Nights at Wario's game. The Return of Bloody Nights. I still think this game is overrated, but not necessarily one of the worst anymore. I still think the gameplay feels a little wonky in places, and I think it should have done more to pay homage to FNAF 1. However, it's not terrible. I think visually the game is pretty neat, especially the animatronic designs. Those are spectacular. Juniors. I also still think this game is overrated, but not really one of the worst. The animatronic designs, visuals, and the soundtrack are all pretty damn great in this game. However, I think this game fumbles in gameplay yet again. It's just a mess of mechanics. Additionally, Night 6 is one of the weakest boss fights in any FNAF game or fan game for me. It is broken to the core and has a lot of aspects to it that make no sense. I'm also not huge on the game's story. It failed to captivate me personally. Jolly 2, and the final dishonorable mention. This game is just really boring and bland and fails to stand out in a unique way. The gameplay mechanics are conceptually inspired, and I think this fan game needed more time in the oven. And now we carry on to the number 1 pick, which I know a lot of people are going to have a lot to say about. Yes, I still think, in my opinion, FNAF In Real Time is the worst FNAF fan game of all time. I made a video talking about it, but I'll talk about it again. The reason why this fan game is the worst one for me is because unlike all the previous games on the list, even Dormitabis, this game goes completely against FNAF 1 in a very insulting and direct way. The reason why that's terrible in my perspective is because FNAF 1 is the game that started everything there is to love about this franchise and is pretty much the heart of this series. If you ruin that, then that is such a huge disservice in my eyes. You could argue the Return of Freddy's 1 does something similar, but despite the reuse of visuals, I think that game stands out a bit enough to not directly ruin FNAF 1. This remake of FNAF 1, where you can see the animatronics move, is a massive downgrade of FNAF 1 in every way. The gameplay is one of the worst parts about this game. The main reason is because it lacks any form of challenge. Bonnie and Chica can be seen at the doors without the lights, Freddy can be easily stalled as early on as the dining area, and Foxy can be heard running down from the office, and it doesn't drain any power whatsoever from knocking on the doors. This all makes the game piss easy and makes the gameplay feel very boring, which goes against how FNAF 1 had an increasing challenge as the game went on. The horror in this game is also a huge disservice, mostly in that it lacks subtlety or any of special quirks that made the original FNAF 1 scary. The animatronics look stupid in their facial expressions when on the cameras. I also think the Night 3 boss night against Foxy was really stupid and obnoxious with how it was presented and executed. Conceptually, the boss night makes no sense too. The story also lacks any subtlety and adds more pointless dribble in what was essentially meant to be just FNAF 1. But you can see the animatronics move. There's also how much Brother got shafted and seemed to be a pointless addition for this FNAF 1 remake. There's also just other minor things in this game that personally irk me too, like the minimap and how overshadowed Golden Freddy was. However, all in all, the concept for this game was doomed from the start. Seeing animatronics move go completely against the horror of FNAF 1, and that's such a huge shame. I heavily dislike this game, mostly that it just comes across as YouTuber bait and pretty much serves to be an industry plant. There's a lot I would do to personally fix this game, so here's my criticism or advice. Again, add more challenge in the gameplay, like requiring the door lights to see Bonnie and Chica, have Foxy drain power when he knocks on the doors, and buff Freddy's difficulty so he's faster when moving. As well, make the horror and story more subtle and mysterious in execution. Make the animatronics' facial expressions more natural and include hints in the game for the story to be more interesting. As well, give Brother more to do so you can have more screen time. Additionally, try to make sure what you put in the game has an actual necessity, like the minimap for example. Also, I personally would just avoid doing stuff like the Foxy basic boss night, at least for a game like this. That's pretty much how I would have gone personally about this game. In short, this is my personal least favorite FNAF fan game because of what it does to FNAF 1 conceptually and in execution. And this game could have been so much more. Unfortunately though, it all just results in being a very frustrating experience, and honestly, the worst experience I've ever had playing a Five Nights at Freddy's fan game. Besides for certain fan games, I do have hope in the fan game developers of the games on this list. I hope they can further improve their game development skills because at the end of the day, everyone truly has the talent to make a good FNAF fan game. Not even just a fan game, a good game. FNAF fan games range in all different amount of qualities, but there's always the fact they are often made by passionate people. People that have passion for Five Nights at Freddy's and its community. Even if you think I was harsh today, I hope you think I was constructive because that was the goal here. That there was enough insight, guidance, and constructive criticism left with the developers so they know what to do to improve their future works. Even that, at the end of the day, these are silly FNAF fan games and my Tyler OC used throughout the video is a feminine Ennard with sunglasses. So if you don't want to take this video seriously, by all means. In the end though, FNAF fan games are truly special to me and I'm excited to make a 2025 remake of my best list, where I'm in fact way more positive. You'll just have to stay tuned.